What's up, guys? Welcome to Fold Out Fellowship, a podcast geared for high school and college students. This is where we're going to have great conversations about faithful living in today's world. We just hope that you sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of Fold Out Fellowship. Hey, y'all. Welcome to this week's episode of Fold Out Fellowship.
You want me to spill the water again?
No, you don't have to spill the water again. Yeah, if you weren't here 20 seconds ago, I forgave Amanda for spilling her water. And that's what our topic is today. So, we have Mitchell Kearney here with us.
What's up, everyone? Sorry,
We've got
just coughing.
Yeah, bad timing. We've got Amanda Shockley.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, guys? And
What's up, everybody?
Oh, and it's Ashton coming to you live from the MDPC studio.
There's nobody recording that intro.
No,
that was all over.
Yeah,
the
we can't record that. It's gonna have just.
Well, I was referencing The Office, right? Is that what you were thinking of?
Well, I just died laughing, so I just felt it.
Amanda,
that's good. That's fine.
Amanda lost control there.
I did. Please forgive me.
Yeah. Hey.
Audience, please forgive me.
I think I introduced
together.
the topic before we even started introducing ourselves.
That's great.
Because we're ready to get into it. Today, this week, we are covering the topic of forgiveness. And a lot of you guys listening or watching out there, forgiveness it's a big topic. It can be challenging. It applies to everybody because you've either been forgiven or you are having someone out there that you need to forgive. Mm. And so I think that's really important for us to cover. So that's what we're talking about today. Yeah. So Amanda, with your spilled water, how would you define forgiveness?
Well, I immediately think of Just Friends and that song that we've been singing all week, that forgiveness is more than
saying sorry.
I think, but on a serious note, it is more than, forgiveness is so much more than like a one-time thing. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to define because there's layers to it, right? So forgiveness, whether you're seeking it or extending it, looks really different. But regardless, I think one thing that is true is that forgiveness is a process. It's not a one-time thing. Whether you're seeking forgiveness or you're extending it, it's not a one and done. I think it's a process. So that's vague, but I think that that's true across the board of forgiveness.
Yeah. So what about you? What you think?
I think she nailed it. I think you're spot on. I think if I were to explain some of that too, we don't do a good job just as people, especially because everyone has that memory of like elementary school, and it's like, forgive them, say you're sorry, and it's like facilitated by an adult, and you're just like, I'm sorry, and then you're like, it's okay, and then you're like, okay, well now give them two like encouragement or like put-ups, and you're like, I like your hair and your shirt, and then you're like, okay, now run along, and it's like nothing happened there. Yeah. They are both still mad. One thinks that the other wronged them, and the other, I guess, like, got away with something, but it isn't just, it's silly, but it is more than just saying sorry. You can't just be like, oh, I forgive them. Like, you almost have to continually remind yourself, especially if you're the one wronged, to be like, no, like I need to do something with this, maybe anger or like resentment or just frustration. And like, I have to forgive them daily. Mm-hmm. I have to like, tell myself that it's like, I know that they're sorry. I know that they're, they feel bad that they've wronged me. So like, I'm going to keep, forgiving them.
Yeah.
On and on. So.
And I think we fall into the trap of thinking forgiveness is the fix-all for any conflict we have. We just forgive them, or like you say sorry because you're trying to fix the situation, rather than looking at forgiveness as a discipline that we follow and that draws us closer to Jesus. We use it as a Band-Aid. And so then it loses its meaning and importance, really, if we're just doing what we did as kids. And I'm guilty of this with Luke. Being like, say sorry because you did something wrong, rather than really diving into, do you know that something happened and something needs to be reconciled? Like, maybe that needs to be a part of the conversation too. But it's not, forgiveness is, while it's a process, it's also not a fix-all. It doesn't always solve the conflict, and it doesn't always repair the rift. So if we're looking at forgiveness as only a repair, then we're kind of missing the deeper meaning to forgiveness.
Yeah, I feel like the first time I encountered like the word, like you should go forgive them. Kind of like how Mitchell, you were pointing out. I'm thinking like back to playground days of like second grade, where either I did something dumb to another kid or they did something to me and it hurt my feelings. And then we go and tell a teacher, and then the way to do it is, oh, go say you're sorry. And then you forgive them. And then I feel like, at least
have them hug at the end.
Yeah, it's like forced. Yeah,
fine.
and then kind of like how Amanda, you were saying, like with a Band-Aid, we're kind of taught like just, all right, put the Band-Aid on it till the wound heals and go on. And I feel like that's where I was taught like what a grudge is. Like I felt like I would hold on to it if I didn't feel like I forgave that person. And then that just grows in circumstance as you get older and experience new things and new hurt and new pain. And I feel like I struggled with that kind of growing up and forgiving people because I thought forgiveness was, like Amanda said, putting a Band-Aid on it instead of the daily pursuit of having to choose to forgive them. And I feel like that's where we get this term forgive and forget. Forgive and just go on as if nothing happened. What do y'all think about? Because I know it's heard and it's said so many times. Just forgive and forget. Like forgive and just move on. How do y'all take that or talk to others about the forgive and forget mentality?
Well, I immediately think of The Hills. Maybe that's an older thing, but
yeah, what's The Hills?
The Hills was the original reality show. It followed a group of teenagers in the OC, and
what's
there's
the OC?
this Orange County, California, bunch of rich kids.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, there's this iconic, and I mean iconic moment where Lauren Conrad is talking to a former best friend, and she goes, "I forgive you, and I want to forget you." Boom, mic drop. It was intense. And
what year was this when this thing?
They were in college at the time, I think, that they filmed this, so I would have been in college. Don't make me say it. Probably 2010.
Whoa! No, I'm just kidding.
That's cool.
It
Man,
was.
What a line.
What a
For
line,
2010,
right?
Yeah.
People probably took that and
Beyond
ran with
its
it.
years.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
they shouldn't have. Oh,
Yeah,
That's gross.
I know, but it did become very powerful and was said a lot. I saw a video on Instagram, so I want to give that credit. Can't tell you who the guy was, but was talking about this and that the forgive and forget motto, it misses out on the opportunity that every time you do remember that you have the opportunity to forgive. So the forgetting part denies the possibility that you aren't quite over it when you forgive somebody one time. That you are going to wrestle with that every time you see that person or you remember the hurt that happened. You have the opportunity in that remembering to continue the discipline of forgiveness. So it's not ignoring the hurt, but it's saying, oh, I remember what happened and I forgive them. Even if you don't feel like it, it's just that mental act of saying, I remember the hurt, it really happened, and I forgive them. Kind of like a little mantra of, I'm not going to forget about it right now. Someday I might. Someday it might not have power, but right now it does, and I'm not forgetting it, but I am forgiving it. And so I thought that was really powerful. What he was saying was that really makes forgiveness a discipline that we're constantly engaging in when we're hurt and have been hurt by people or circumstances, that like we're engaging with the discipline of doing something over and over again. And the thing about a discipline is you don't always have to feel it to do it. And I think we fall into that trap a lot in our Christian faith with things that we should be disciplining ourselves to do, is that I have to wait till I feel it.
Yeah.
It's not true. That was never said in Scripture. Jesus never said, when you feel like it, you should forgive. He said, he was asked the question, how many times should we forgive? And he said 70 times 7, which really is for eternity. As many times as I have forgiven you, you forgive. Not because you feel like it, but because you've been forgiven. And so we get to do that and remember that every time we remember the hurt. And we get to forgive.
Wow. How do I follow that up? No, I had something at one point, but then I just got so focused on what you were saying. I think it was mainly focused on the word forget. And it's like, if you're trying to, I think it's okay if you're like defining forget in that phrase as like, I'm putting it behind me, I'm going to like forget about it. I think that's okay. Like if you have moved on, but that's almost more, I don't know, like advanced. Like, I mean, you're thinking about like, if you're trying to forget, but you're really just stuffing those feelings down, then you're not forgetting. You know, I mean, I could see it being okay if you're like forgive and forget, and if you're talking about in the sense of like, no, that's behind me, it happened, like let's not talk about it anymore. I think, you know, and you're not stuffing feelings down because you have maybe time and time and time again you've remembered, just like what you were saying, and you have actively forgiven them, and then maybe you like become friends again with this person, and you actually do forget what happened because you have forgiven them. I think that's probably fine. But if it's like, no, just forget, stop mentioning it, it didn't happen. It's like, and you're saying it with that tone of voice. No, I forgot about it. It's like, you haven't.
Yeah.
Like that's dangerous. You're taking those feelings of still being angry at somebody, or, you know, feeling frustrated, or like they treated you wrongly, and you're like pushing those down.
Yeah.
It's like, that's when it's like, have you forgiven them? It doesn't sound like you have, you know?
And consider it in the context of 1 Corinthians 13, right? Where the laundry list of what love should look like, which is really the love that God has for us, right? This example we should follow. Part of that is that love keeps no record of wrongs, which in a healthy forgive and forget, that's probably what it looks like, right? You love that person so much that record of wrong is gone. But often what happens when we're in conflict with somebody and we need to forgive them, we've lost some feelings of love toward them. Like and so I think we have to look at it too in that context of like how we're loving somebody, and do we love them? Can we not keep a record of wrong? And perhaps that's the healthy rephrasing of forgive and forget. Forgive and don't keep a record of wrongs. And when you're in relationship with somebody. But the other part of that too is like what we're not saying is don't ignore good boundaries you need to set up and places where you can forgive and still not be in relationship with that person. What we're really talking about is forgiveness in the context, I think, of community that's ongoing, because there's that small kind of like footnote I think we need to put in there of like, don't be in an unhealthy relationship.
That was my well, I mean, because a lot of times I think forgive and forget, especially in like a relationship scenario, you know, you're head over heels for this girl or guy, and you're gonna just forgive them and forget all the things that are like red flags to you, you know, or things that are standing out like, that didn't sit right with me. She said something really rude to me. He did something really offensive towards me, you know, like these things. And it's like, oh, well, I'm called to forgive and forget as a Christian, so I'll just keep tolerating it. And I don't think forgive and forget is that, where there's no correction after the fact, you know, because like we're saying, I feel like when you get in like the forgive and forget mindset and you're trying to just numb it by saying nothing happened, and then you push that all down, well, eventually you get stuffed up so much to where eventually, if not sooner, there's some revenge that takes set, you know, and you lash out, or, you know, you see them in a negative light, or a like they deserve, you know, everything coming back at them, you know, things like that, which we also aren't called to how we act like that towards people. So yeah, it's setting boundaries, you know. It's I feel like it's impossible to forgive and forget. Well, you know, like you need to remember to grow.
It's almost like if we're going back to what you said in the very beginning, that forgiveness is a process. It's like if you take the forgive and forget phrase and you try to if like forgive is step one, and then you kind of replay step one a bunch of times, so you keep forgiving them day in and day out, and you're remembering them. You don't want the second step, if it's forget, in the term of like, don't keep a record of wrongs, forget. You don't want that to come too quickly, because then you're stuffing it down. You want the like, I'm going to erase this from what they've done. You want that to come later when you've actually fully forgiven them. And again, it's not the forget that's like, forget about it. Yeah, I don't even, whatever. Like, you're clearly still angry. It's like the forget that's in 1 Corinthians. It's like, it keeps no record of wrongs. So even years down the line, if this is like with a friend, you're not like, maybe they wrong you again, and then, or maybe you wrong them and you justify it, and you're like, well, remember that one time, and then it's like, this is not good, Then it gets icky, and it gets like, I thought you forgave me for that, and it's like, oh, you clearly didn't, because you're bringing it up this much later, so you're still angry about it. It's like, so there does need to be a sense of like, out of sight, out of mind, I'm forgetting that you did this to me, but in the sense of no record of wrongs.
And in the right order.
Right. You can't do it if you forgive them and then you're like, let's put it past us, I won't even think about it again. It's like, you kind of know when someone's saying it that way, and it's like, I still feel like it's there. A little bit's there, and that's okay, It
gives you an opportunity to dive into what about what happened hurt, really. What was it? And if you can name that, I think that can help the forgiveness and the no record of wrongs process a little bit too, when you can name what was hurt instead of just being like, I'm just angry at you. Okay, why? Like, we have the emotion chart in our office, and we look at that, and like it kind of dives deeper and deeper into, well, angry, what does angry mean? What kind of angry? Is it irritated? But going into, well, I felt betrayed, and that betrayal hurt a lot because I trusted you. And so now you have something to work on. Okay, we've lost trust. We have to rebuild that. And that rebuilding can help dismiss the record of wrongs, so to speak, when you know what you have to work towards. If you're just sitting in the like angry phase and you're not naming what was hurt or what was broken, then what do you have to forgive and fix? If you don't know what it is. So that's a part of that process too, which is why forgiveness is so much of a bigger thing. And then on the converse side, what we haven't really talked about is when we need to ask for forgiveness.
Dang it, I was gonna flip us there.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Do you forgive me?
I forgive you. You can keep going. I was like ready. I was ready to cook. I was just like, but what about the vice versa? But anyways,
do it.
Ahead.
Say it.
No, it just doesn't have the weight anymore. But it's okay. It's all right. Amanda, you're cooking. Go ahead.
He's like, it's okay. I'll forget about it.
No, yeah, like I'll forgive and forget. Whatever.
Yeah, I like jumped ahead of you, and I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Which is something so much more uncomfortable to talk about, honestly. I would much rather be in the powerful position of being like, I can extend forgiveness than to be the one that has to ask for it.
Yeah.
I think we could all relate
You're just
to
like,
we'll
I
see.
guess I forgive you.
But I think that is a process too, to seek forgiveness. The whole like, I'm sorry thing real quickly, to kind of smooth over what's wrong, is not the right way to seek forgiveness. Like, you do have to check in on the attitude of your heart as well when you go to seek forgiveness. So that's a part of that process too. You can't jump to it too quickly, and you also can't jump to it too slowly. But really, have you acknowledged what you did was wrong? Do you understand? And even if, and this is something you like kind of work on in like a lot of romantic relationships, even if you don't understand why that hurt the person, understanding that they were hurt. And you can be like, I am sorry that I hurt you. That is not what I wanted to do. I may not understand why it hurt you, but I can say that I'm sorry that I hurt you. And if you can work through that process to get to the point where you understand and like do feel sorry for at least the way the person was made to feel as a result of your actions, that's a part of that forgiveness, seeking forgiveness process. That's important too.
Yeah. I think it's, I'm thinking about just buddies of mine and myself, like in the past, where we were really good at the Band-Aid forgiveness of just being like, nah, dude, it's cool, and put the Band-Aid on, and then like another frustration come up, and then the wound's opened again. And it was because of that lack of communication and openness. And I think the forgive and being forgiven, we're talking a lot about it on friendship level and being in relationship with this person. So I'll say on that spectrum of things. So yeah, whenever you were able to name like what it was, like how Amanda, you were saying, it's almost like going to the doctor for an open wound and being able to name like that specific ointment needed to heal it, and like we talk about, you can't really forget anything. I mean, there might be a scar there later, but you're able to, whenever you're able to communicate what it was that was wrong or what it was that you wronged them on, even if like you didn't understand it, you can then grow from that and heal from that. and you don't left it untreated.
Yeah, the medicine gets to the right place. If you're like, hey, I got cut here, and they start looking at your toe, well, that's not where the injury is. Right. You got to go to the place where the wound is.
Yeah. Which is hard.
On what exactly? We kind of been jumping around.
Anything.
On anything?
So, yeah, if your pinky gets cut and the doctor says, let me check your ankle.
Oh, so we're jumping on that metaphor
I'm
more?
just kidding.
Well,
How do you approach seeking forgiveness?
I think I really like what you had to say about you don't need to understand it right away. And I think that's where, regardless of your relationship, whether it's like a romantic one or like your friends or maybe like your mom or dad or brother or whatever, I think a lot of people might try to understand why it hurt them. And they're like, well, if I was in your position, I wouldn't be mad. And it's like, but you don't even need to ask that question. You don't need to worry about why they're mad or why they feel this way. You just need to like get, like what we're saying, you need to hit it, ask for forgiveness already. It's like, you might not understand why they're upset at this. And it's because you're not them, right? They can get mad at what they're going to get mad at. You can't argue how they feel, right? And a lot of the times they can't either. It's like, hey, you did this. It made me feel this way. I don't really know why it made me feel this way, but like, I'm kind of mad right now. And if they name that and it's like, okay, well, I don't really understand like the logistics behind why that would make you upset. Maybe it's like, a simple situation. I think about last night, actually. Here's a very simple, like, practical situation. So my roommate, Michael, I used one of his knives to just like cut some of the food I was making. And it was a really nice knife. And I washed it and like dried it and then I put it on the drying rack. And he wasn't like angry. This isn't like super roommate drama or anything.
This is a knife and
but he was just like
crazy.
Yeah, he like takes the knife.
Yeah, he was fine. He just pulled a knife on me.
Oh gosh.
Just kidding, Michael. You probably didn't do that yet.
No, but he was like, oh, hey. And he was like, Mitchell, if you could, like, whenever you're done with these, like, they're not good when they have water on them. So, like, don't air dry them. And, like, if you don't mind, put them back in, like, the, like, really nice, like, knife rack that we have. And I was like, oh, my bad. Like, I'll do that, And that was, like, the very quick interaction. I could have been like, dude, water, why would you be mad at why water would hurt? I could start asking all these questions and, like, be confused at why he cares about that. But, like, I don't know. Those are his knives. He can feel however he wants to about them. So I was just like, oh, I didn't know that was the process. And, like, I'll do that next time. Like, my bad. Like, I'll dry it and I'll put it back where I had it. Like, I won't just be careless with it.
Yeah.
And even if I don't understand that, it's like, well, I love Michael and I want to be able to show him that I care when he cares about something. And I don't want to, like, mess up anything. So I'm going to care for the stuff that he has just as much as he does. And I hope he does that in return too. So that's just like I hope that's a pretty decent example, right?
Yeah, I think that's an easy thing to be like, I don't get it. And
look, I don't get it, but I don't have to.
Right.
That's really the bottom line of like what I'm saying. Like I don't have to seek to understand or like question you of why it affects you that way.
Yeah.
All I have to do is do it, and that will make you feel better, and that's great.
Because we take responsibility for the people in our community. And that part of that is being like, I made you feel a certain way. I'll take responsibility for that. Mm-hmm. And it's so much healthier to do that than to try and argue them out of the way that they feel.
Yeah.
Like, stop feeling that way. I can't. Well, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Where does that go? But when you're in community with people and you have that trust and accountability, which is important to it. We talked about that in the very first, how you build good friendships. Mm-hmm. You want throwback. You want to seek that out. And I think you have to be willing to do that too. But that willingness, I think, comes along with trust to see something you don't understand, but see past it to the hurt you created, and then say, I'm sorry.
Well, and I think that kind of shows us a little bit more about our relationship with God too, when we ask forgiveness, right? A lot of us have probably experienced, or at least been part of a prayer with somebody where it's like, God, forgive us for the things that like we don't even know that we do. And it's like, I've always thought that prayer was interesting because it's like us trying to get to that point, what we were just saying with God. We're like, God, I've probably done things that were running from you, that were sinful, that were not of you and separate from you, and I don't even know them, but they hurt your heart a little bit, you know? Like when I do them, you're like, oh, like, Mitchell, why are you doing that? Mm-hmm. And maybe it doesn't affect you, but like he hurts a little bit when you do it. So like whenever you have those prayers, that's kind of like what we're just talking about. It's like, God, there's probably some things, not probably, there are some things that I've done that maybe weren't glorifying to you, or like I was running the other way, or I was doing this. And you're like, I can't name all of those, but I want to ask for forgiveness for those things too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a key part in like that relationship with God too. It's like, maybe you don't understand why he calls this or that out, and like why he says this is right or wrong, but that's not for you to determine, right? It's like, oh man, well, you know, this hurt you because I did this, so I want to. It's just the same thing. It's a relationship. And you're like, I need to ask for forgiveness though. And like, I need to get to that point where maybe I don't understand it, but I don't want to hurt you because you are the ultimate redeemer and the ultimate forgiver. And like, who am I to not forgive someone else from something they did when you forgave me for everything? Like, how much crazier is that? And I think that helps us a lot more too when we are trying to forgive, you know, as we realize, you know, forgiven people in part forgive others as well. And I think that's important. So,
yeah, that was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the pieces of the process of forgiveness is that we're also doing that in our relationship with the Lord, so that we can do that for other people. Because that act of confession and receiving forgiveness is a reminder of how great of a forgiveness we've received. And if we're not reminded of that, then we can become really prideful in thinking that we don't need it. But when we are engaging in confession and recognizing what we've done and how we've grieved God's heart, and that we're capable of that, I think that humility helps us give forgiveness and ask for it when we recognize those things. So I think confession is a huge part of that discipline and forgiveness too, is, you know, within our private relationship with the Lord, we're engaging in that. And so we can extend it.
Oh, and confession does, I mean, it feels good too, to just get that off your chest and get that weight off your shoulders of like, especially when you have that trust with God where you're just like, even if it's something you've done again and again and again, you're just like, and you can name it, other than like the difference of the things you don't, you're like, I probably messed up. I did mess up. Like, forgive me. When you have that one thing that you're actively confessing about, you're like, can you help me with this, God? Or like, I know I'm asking for forgiveness. Like, I did the same thing again. Yeah. Like, please forgive me. It just feels, I mean, because when you know God that way, it's like, even if I keep messing up, he is the one who holds the ultimate record of no wrongs, you know, which is, I mean, it's just mind blowing to think about. It really is. It makes my little forgivenesses seem like, no, I'm just like, dude, sure. Like, you know?
Who am I? No. Yeah. Well, I think it's cool for me whenever I ask, you know, whenever I'm in a state of confession with God and I ask him to forgive me, and then we get to think of like the good news that our sins are forgiven. Like, Jesus paid the debt, right? And it's almost like, when we say forgive me, it's almost like, can you help me remember like the forgiveness you've shown me? You know, like trust that you really did forgive my sins, like that you do forgive me. Because it's really hard sometimes to feel that way, you know, like, and to trust that God loves me enough that he did forgive me for that. And like, if I do mess up again and again and again, he does love me enough to forgive me again and again and again, you know? And hopefully through that consistent going to confession and asking him to forgive you, that like then begins the sanctification process of wanting to become more like him, to avoid that pain of going and saying, hey, messed up again, you know, there should be a conviction there, you know, to change and move forward. And another, so just flipping script, I wanted to ask you all, you know, well, what about, why is it important to forgive someone that hasn't asked for forgiveness? So whether that be that can be somebody in your social circle, that can be somebody that flipped you off on I-10, you know, that, you know, it can be people that just had no moral understanding of who you were or know your name, but they wronged you. Why are we called to forgive those people?
Why are we called to forgive those people?
Yeah, why is a big question.
Jesus calls us.
Right, Jesus calls us to.
All right, well, next question.
And that's it, yeah. No, but
But how do you do that?
how do you do that?
Similarly to, you kind of referenced like an Instagram video that you didn't know that. I feel like, man, I need to start saving more things because this, similarly to that, I saw this on a TikTok one time. TikTok can bring the funniest things, but also some pretty true things too. But this really helped me get over a forgiveness in my life where the person who wronged me didn't really ask for forgiveness, nor were they, and not even like, that's like, asking for forgiveness is a big thing. They weren't even sorry about what they did.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't even realize how much they wronged me, I guess. But anyways, this TikTok kind of laid out, there's this simple phrase that was just like, it's really hard to be angry and frustrated with someone and be like unforgiving to someone if you feel pity for them in any way. And I think that kind of goes back to like, when someone's asking for forgiveness or seeking forgiveness, I think both parties need this sort of like, they need to understand one another. Again, even if there's not that understanding, there needs to be the trying to. Like,
I understand that I hurt you.
I understand that I hurt you. I don't understand why or what it was exactly, or maybe that doesn't resonate with me. But I understand that whatever it was, it hurt you. And like, I want to correct that. When there's no sense of like, I want to correct that, at least what helped me was just that very phrase of like, I needed to understand this person in detail of like why they would do something like this to me. And once I understood their situation, I mean, it really seemed like it was somebody who was stuck in a place that they had nothing else to do. And I was the one who got the butt end of this situation. And it was like, once I fully understood their situation, their life stage that we're in, I did feel a little bit of pity. And at first it like kind of felt good, I guess, which was probably not the right call either, right? It was like, oh man, that's probably why they did that to me. Like, cause their life is not the best. And that felt kind of reassuring. It's like, man, even I have a better life than that right now. Like I couldn't imagine if I was in that situation, but the more it kind of grew, it turned into this like, man, like I understand why you kind of hurt me. And maybe you didn't mean to, maybe you did, but that's okay. And I mean, I feel like at this part of my life, I've kind of worked past, and I'm kind of at that part where like I'm trying to forget it because it was decently long enough ago, but I don't know. It seems distant already, and I feel like I've kind of put closed the book on that in a sense, and been like, I'm okay that he wronged me, and like maybe he's not seeking forgiveness, but like, I'm okay. Like I forgive what he did because he was in that situation. This happened to him, and maybe he didn't even plan it to go that way. And like, that's okay, And now, of course, hindsight's always great. But looking back at it, it's like one thing led to the next, and like now I'm here, and now like there's so many things to like glorify God about, like just being at MDPC, and just like simple things now. So. I don't know. It's hard though, but I guess with all that being said, it is really hard to be mad at somebody or to be, you can't forgive someone or I'm saying that wrong. It's hard. I've lost it.
It's okay.
Grab it, get it back.
I'm trying to find it. But
it's hard to forgive somebody if you haven't
it's hard to forgive somebody if you can't get to that, and if you feel pity for someone, then you can get there, so.
Again, more of the process. And I think that's wisdom. And that's really only comes from God and seeking God. The wisdom to know, okay, can I take myself out of this a little bit and look at the person and what they've been going through? And that is healing and helpful. And I think of like, there's several, and also, right, this has a lot of variations as everything does because relationships are different. Is this a family member? Is this somebody who is like far from you? But the wisdom in it is to be able to see that person kind of out externally from that relationship and situation and say,
they're a person
in the same
too.
way, in the same way that I mess up, in the same way that like I make mistakes based on fear or pride or whatever, can I identify what that person's going through and at least find some pity just on a human level?
Yeah.
Like outside of this situation, horrible. They did something wrong. I know that.
Yeah.
Who is this person outside of this one situation? And is there something they're going through? Their relationship is in tatters. They're fearful. They're worried they're going to lose their job. They're struggling with an addiction that makes them not be able to see straight. They grew up in a family that didn't talk about things, and they don't understand how to care for other people's feelings. Can you look at that stuff and say, gosh, that's hard. That is hard. And I would much rather have the potential to speak life into this relationship later on down the road than to hold on to the bitterness. And I think about that for the situations that I have in my own life with people who I can't get rid of. So I want to have the potential to speak life, and to hold on to not forgiving them because they haven't asked for it means that relationship suffers. So what's more important? Is it the potential to have a better relationship down the road by me forgiving and taking having pity on that person? Or do I want to hold on to that and feel resentful and never be able to have a relationship? I think there's that famous phrase, right? Not forgiving somebody or holding a grudge is like eating poison and expecting the other person to die. It only hurts you. And that other person has no idea it's even hurting you. And so how much power do you want to give that?
Yeah.
But I think it's wisdom to be able to know how to approach that person and externalize it from your situation to view them as God would view them. Like, oh, gosh, that's hard. You're dealing with something hard.
Yeah.
You were a jerk, but you're dealing with something hard.
Yeah. 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 Because I guess I don't think we have enough podcast time to talk about a full picture of forgiveness, because I feel like we haven't even gotten into the things we've said can be applied to it, but it's hard to paint the picture of forgiving those people in the world that seem to be purely
Evil.
and it's almost like you have to do that for yourself to forgive them on the fact that they are human and they're sinful and they're in a broken world, and whatever corrupted them. But you also have to trust that the God that we talk about that loves you a lot is also a just God, but we're not the ones to hold the revenge on them, because we can't do that. We're not called to that. We can't fix the wrongs of somebody else.
Right. And asking yourself the question, am I actually the one that was wronged here? Do they owe me forgiveness? It's interesting in Jewish tradition, right? If someone murders a family member, in that culture, you can't forgive them of the murder because they didn't do that to you. You are not the one to extend forgiveness to them because they killed somebody, but they killed that person. They owe that person their, sorrow and to ask for forgiveness. What they've done to you is not the murder. They may have taken someone from you in a violent way, but they didn't murder you. And so recognizing really where we're owed forgiveness is important too, I think, in that grand kind of global scheme of things. Yes, there's evil in the world. That's horrible. Am I owed forgiveness as a result of what that evil person is doing? No. So maybe what you're looking at is a call to action to start righting wrongs, which is what we're called to be in the kingdom of God. But you're not owed forgiveness in that capacity. If it happens to you and towards you, you want forgiveness, or you need to, or you don't want forgiveness, you need to extend forgiveness. But really recognizing what your options are there is important too, globally speaking. Righting wrongs and living as Christ called us to live in the world is one option, and extending forgiveness is another. Sometimes they go hand in hand, but recognizing when you've actually been wronged and are owed forgiveness, I think, is an important distinction when you're looking at the global evil of the world. So.
Yeah.
But you're right. This is a bigger topic, so maybe there's a part 2 on forgiveness.
Yeah. No, I mean it is. It's hard to hear that, because we talk about forgiveness, but all of us, everyone listening here, needs to be forgiven, or has to ask for forgiveness.
I think that's
Yeah,
a safe
has to ask-
assumption.
Yeah.
Everyone here
Right.
Well, everyone definitely here needs.
Everyone
to be
in this
forgiven.
space
Needs to be forgiven.
of
Yeah.
something.
No, yeah. And so it is.
Okay, fine. I do.
All right. Whatever I
Everybody else,
needed.
but I need
Confess
to
it
forgive.
now.
Yeah. No, it's so like, I mean, forgiveness, we all need it. And that's why Jesus came and died for us, is because we needed it. We needed forgiveness. You know, and it's sometimes hard for us to hear that, because I think some people struggle with pride, and some people struggle with, you know, this like play victim culture all the time, you know, where I've been wronged, I've had this happen to me, I've gone through this, I've had to come out of this, I've been put back again, and it's me happening to me. But there's a two-way street, like when it comes to it, and you know, and like we were saying, like there is evil out there, and sometimes things happen that you have not asked for, you know, and that is a product of sin. That is a product of a broken world, and God will call those things to justice one day, and we don't know how that's going to look, you know, specifically, but we need to have a faith that trusts that God loves us, and He loves all of His kids and all of His sons and daughters, but also is a just God for the evils that have been done, you know, and that's hard, but it's true, you know, so. Yeah, forgiveness, a small topic.
It's
Part
more
two.
than feeling sorry.
Part 2 is
More than
revenge.
feelings.
Part 2 is how we should not seek revenge. Everyone's like,
that's right.
I want to seek revenge, and we're like, no, vengeance is the Lord's.
Part 2, vengeance.
Part 2, yeah.
Vengeance.
It's not yours.
Yeah.
Part 1.
But
Part 2, vengeance.
oh man, well,
Stay
It's
tuned.
just Batman.
yeah. I was about to say Batman. This is Batman.
We come in Batman costumes.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Welcome to
Today we're talking about vengeance. Justice.
I'm not sure I can talk that low, y'all.
You should
Try in front of everyone right now.
Vengeance.
There
Not
you
bad.
go.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Better than me. Vengeance.
I'm not wearing hockey pants.
What?
Dark Knight, have you seen it?
Yes.
He wears hockey pants.
But he says I'm not wearing hockey pants.
I don't know.
Anyways. I mean,
Anyways, it was fun.
Or we
having
could
you
close
guys.
with that. We could
Yeah,
close with Dark
that's a good
Knight.
closing. Yeah, watch The Dark Knight if you haven't already. Anyways, no, thank you guys for listening. If you've made it all 40 minutes of this episode, we're glad you're here. But no, thank you guys for listening and tuning in on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave a comment, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Mitchell and Amanda, thank you guys for joining me once again.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. No problem at all.
It's always a joy.